Hey, Ron. Brad Porter here with your weekly Sunday update. I'm going to talk about three topics. I'm going to talk about the Deployed podcast really briefly. I'm going to talk about Generalist AI and some of what we're seeing in physical AI. And I'm going to talk about my philosophy on performance management and promotion and some of how that ties into AI. So three themes. I'll go really quick. First, amazing. We've had over 80,000 views of Jeff Wilke's podcast. He goes deep into the history behind the primary drone program, how Amazon thought about scaling to millions of people, bottlenecks. Fascinating conversation. Seems to be continuing to pick up steam. This week, the next podcast on the Deployed series is with Alfred Lin, the co-steward of Sequoia Capital, amazing venture capitalist, amazing operator, amazing entrepreneur. And so tune into that as well. The exciting thing this week was like Generalist AI produced both, a lot of interesting videos, but also a fair bit of detail about how they've been building their models and what they're learning from it. And it's fascinating. 270,000 hours of data collection, right? With kind of rigs like what I'm showing here. This is, this is our own data collection setup. Actually, our team's, this is the smaller lab we have here in Santa Clara. We have a bigger operation where our AI team sits in Seattle. 270,000 hours. And what they showed is that refinement of that model. So if you take that model and then you add more data to learn a new task, it learns that new task a little bit better, right? What they didn't really show is the type of generality that you kind of need in the world, right? So like, let's just turn over here, right? We've got a toolbox. Pliers, right? How do we use these? What does the brush do, right? How does this... The point is, like, we do all of this stuff, right? Gotta push a button. We do all of this stuff without a lot of thinking, right? Without a lot of deep introspection. And it's not that hard, right? Like, I can twist these two little wires together and like, and what we're seeing is that, 270,000 hours of data is a lot of data, right? And yet, the ChatGPT moment is going to come when we can approach novel tasks and really zero-shot generalize those. And we're seeing progress on that. DreamGen is one of the pieces of work by NVIDIA that we like. One of those researchers just announced he's leaving NVIDIA, so I'm curious to see where that goes. But that work is powered by a huge cluster of GPUs in the background and takes a while because you're effectively, to reason about what you're trying to do in the world, you've got to like instantiate the whole world in this complex video world model and then try to like decide what to do next. What we're going to find, right, and what Cobot's working on is that we're going to need a new architecture, that VLAs are not absorbing data efficiently enough. World models can absorb a huge amount of information, but they're producing world, not direct actions, and so translating that to very rapid motion is going to be tricky. And so we still have work to do to get to the ChatGPT moment. On the other hand, we are seeing that we can build up these models very quick, very robustly, and then learn new tasks very, very quickly. And we're going to start to see that deployed in production, where what were previously tasks that might have taken months or a year for a team of scientists to go figure out. Like at Amazon, this is what we did. We constrained the task, right? Bin picking or moving a box onto a, Cardinal moves a box onto a tabletop. That's what we did, is kind of sandbox the activity and then learn the task in an activity. And I think what Generalist just showed is that, these kind of VLAs trained with a large amount of data, if we want to retarget those to a sandbox task, where we're willing to collect some data and learn that task, we can do that robustly. Now, at how many nines of availability or reliability is an open question. How much data you need to get that refinement. But from what I hear through the rumor mill of covariant acquisition and other things is like Amazon on those tabletop tasks is doing extremely well, right? And so robots are going to be able to do more and more things, but that ChatGPT moment, I think we're going to need a new architecture. We're developing a new architecture that we think can close this gap, and if we get the right new architecture, it will compress out the right data. Like we as humans, a 7-year-old to a 14-year-old to a 21-year-old, we're not that much different in our dexterous manipulation ability, right? We do a lot between age 6 months and 36 months to learn how to manipulate everything in the world, and then we've got it, right? And then we spend the next 20 years PhDs trying to learn domains very deeply. I think we're going to find that with the right architecture, we can compress information much better. I want to talk about how Cobot approaches performance management, because I think we've done something a little bit unique. So first of all, we do not couple our performance management. So we're doing a little bit of a 360 feedback process right now. I think it's a good best practice. We want to spend relatively little time on it because, again, it's a good practice to make sure everyone's getting kind of the feedback and the performance they need. We all need that in order to improve. On the other hand, it's taken away from the productive work. So one question is, how do we streamline that? But I also think that these review processes that big companies do are a good way to inflict a lot of trauma on a whole employee base, right? So this catch-22 of how do you give feedback without inflicting a bunch of psychological trauma? And I think the key to this is speed and objectivity, and I think this is where LLMs can help us. And in fact, working with a few engineers that we work with from time to time in a very kind of AI-driven way, we just kind of jointly developed and vibe coded a performance tool that lets us collect feedback, match people, collect feedback very quickly, summarize it all with text summarization, LLMs, and give people meaningful feedback to improve. The whole thing takes not a lot of time at all, right? But one of the reasons that I think these inflict a lot of trauma is because the performance review gets coupled to promotion, career development, compensation. So at Cobot, we decouple that, right? Feedback is a feedback process. It's a way to calibrate and understand how you're doing. Promotions are separate. Compensation adjustments are separate. Our philosophy on compensation adjustment is we want you to be compensated well relative to the market for your talents all the time, right? And so we try to calibrate that regularly and periodically and make sure that you are being compensated well. And then promotions are interesting. So I have a philosophy that promotions are really evidence of increasing autonomy, judgment, and leadership. And these often go hand in hand. Like if your judgment is very high, you're very autonomous, people often come to you for advice, for help, you start to be able to lead. My observation is that over time, as people's career progresses, their judgment improves, their autonomy improves, and people look to them for leadership, whether as an individual contributor or as a manager, right? And so level progression in a career progression is really about increasing levels of autonomy, judgment, and leadership. And so our philosophy at Cobot is we would rather promote 3 months early than 6 months late, right? We would rather have the bias be on the employee side, promote aggressively, and we will promote anytime. We'll promote anytime it's merited, and the process is effectively the manager writes a couple paragraphs as to, autonomy, judgment, leadership, how this individual is performing, why we think they're operating at that next level. There's a quick, lightweight, sanity check and management chain. And then if we're good, we promote the person, we rebaseline their compensation to that new level, update it, and no trauma, no drama, And in general, we try to promote people a little before they might be expecting it. We also have what we call the career and-on chord, which is if you feel like maybe you're close to promotion, but you don't really know what it takes to get over the hurdle, you can basically raise your hand and say, hey, I want to deep dive on what it takes to get to the next level, right? And again, this is just a mechanism by which individuals own their own career, own their own progression, and if their manager's not giving them the type of feedback they need, they can get, they have a mechanism to invoke to get more robust feedback, and we'll help promote them, or we'll help gather the data to kind of coach them on what it will take to help them get promoted to the next level. Again, it's a startup. We're not big on promotion-oriented culture. We're not big on heavyweight HR processes. We're big on, training robots in the lab. That's what we do. But those are, some of our philosophy that's a little bit different. All right. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll catch you later.